Happy World Whiskey Day! Hey everyone, welcome to Bourbon Bytes. My name is Clifton, and today, May 21st, 2022, is World Whiskey Day. So I thought I would celebrate with a very special whiskey that I had never heard of. So this is the World Whiskey Blend from That Boutique Whiskey Company. This is made up of whiskeys from 14 different countries, and let me try to name them all. Scotland, Canada, Ireland, Sweden, USA and Switzerland, Netherlands, Taiwan, India, Italy, Germany, France and Japan, and Finland. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk a little bit more about this whiskey. So this one comes in at 41.6% ABV, so 83.2 proof. Now, if you don't know, That Boutique Whiskey Company is an independent bottler of whiskeys from all over the world, primarily Scotch. And they say this one was designed with the world in mind. So if you look at the back of the bottle, they actually show you several different ways that the world typically drinks whiskey. And I think the most interesting one here was with green tea. Now, I will say I have not tried any whiskey mixed with green tea or coconut water for that matter, but I will say I did have a pour of this with some Coca-Cola earlier, and it was delicious. It brought out a lot of those really sweet vanilla notes, but they do acknowledge that not everyone mixes whiskey. They say mix me or don't, so we're about to have it neat for this review. By the way, I picked this up for $65. I think it was a little bit cheaper when it first came out overseas. This is a 700 milliliter bottle, so I'm imagining that's why we're just now seeing it here in the US now that we can actually get these imported. But needless to say, they intended this to be a, lower priced, more budget whiskey that you can enjoy how you like to drink it. But for me, that's neat, so let's go ahead and give this a nose. Oh yeah, I see why this did really well in the Coke I had it with earlier. So this is super sweet and caramel, almost like a Canadian whiskey on the nose. Not much oak on the nose, which is understandable. I imagine most of the 14 countries whiskeys that went in here are using used oak versus new American oak, like a bourbon. There's a little bit of fruity sweetness. It's definitely on the lighter end, kind of like an apple or a pear, really bright, light fruits. Not necessarily the red fruits that you would get on like a sherried or sherry finished whiskey. There's also a nice bit of citrus there too, a bit of like a lemon zest going on, but it's definitely bright in the fruit category. In terms of the grain, like I said, this is made up of so many different whiskeys. I do get a good bit of a rye kind of spice going on here on the nose. Definitely not as much as like a rye whiskey, but of any grain that I'm picking up on this, the rye is the most dominant on the nose. But let's go to get a taste. So sláinte, salud, prost, however you say it, cheers. Very, very crisp and easy to drink. This one has a really nice mouthfeel that is super oily, almost buttery in a way. It kind of has a little bit of that heftiness to it that I wouldn't have expected with something so low proof. I think the rye is a bit tamed on the palate. It's definitely not standing out as much as it was earlier. And this is starting to taste a little bit more like a single malt scotch more than anything. And there's actually a hint of smoke on the palate, which I thought was really interesting since I imagine most of these countries don't really do like a smoked whiskey or like a peated whiskey. They're gonna go for the lighter, fruitier single malt flavors. I was a bit worried that with so many different elements to it, that this would feel a bit disjointed and kind of like spiky in different directions, but really, it's a really nice blend and it's super well rounded. It's also not nearly as sweet as I imagined. I was a bit worried that with some of these influences, it would be very heavily, vanilla, sweet, caramel kind of note. It was that on the nose, but on the palate, there's a lot of rich depth there. Still not really much oak, because again, we don't have an age statement here. A lot of this is using used oak, but still, it's a really complex and interesting flavor. I will say this is definitely more than just, a mixing whiskey. Of course, like they said, enjoy it how you want to, but on its own, neat, it's actually a really, really enjoyable pour, and I can't wait to share this with some friends. So however you were celebrating World Whiskey Day, let me know in the comments below what the most interesting country's whiskey you've ever tried was. For me, I really haven't ventured too far outside of the norm when it comes to, the types of whiskey. I will say though, I've had some really incredible Indian and Taiwanese whiskey that have surprised me as an American whiskey drinker. So let me know what you tried, but until next time, this has been Bourbon Bytes Whiskey Reviews with a gaming twist. Happy World Whiskey Day, and I'll talk to you next video. Cheers!